It just never stops. So the first teaser for the Disney live-action remake of Aladdin dropped, and I don't really want to talk about that specifically, but it has driven me to the point where I realized how long it has been since I talked about my feelings on Disney doing live-action remakes of their animated films. So I have talked about this before, and I was hesitant to talk about it again because my views haven't really changed since the last time I talked about this. And I forget how many years ago it was now. I don't think I'd even broken 1,000 subscribers yet the last time I talked about this. So you know what? We're going to talk about it again. So, I am fundamentally, philosophically, and severely against the entire premise of Disney making live-action remakes of their animated films for a number of reasons. The first is that they're failing to do what I think there is more than ample room to do. If Disney were to be taking these things that they have already done as animated features, most of which are considered classics, if they were to go to something like Aladdin, Beauty and the Beast, Cinderella, The Jungle Book, and if they were going back to the source material and going, what is a way for us to tackle this material that's different from the last time we did it, I would have zero issue. Absolutely none. That's more than a valid thing to do, especially, you know, considering these folklore, how much the Disney version deviates from the original in the first place. That's not even to say that to do a live action you should keep it close to the original. No, sure. Go off, do your own Disney thing. Just have it be a different Disney thing than the last time you did it. But they're not doing that. By and large, what they're doing is literally remaking the same movie in live action. And I hate this so much. First of all, in my mind, this entire practice is as pointless as Gus Van Sant's shot-for-shot remake of Psycho was. It is of the same level. It already exists. It's considered a classic. You're just doing it again. And you're not differentiating it. And the few things that they've done to differentiate these things are the worst options for how to do it. Now, allow me to clarify a few things. I've actually not seen any of the live-action remakes of Disney films, and I won't. I don't want to watch them, and I refuse to throw money at them. That said, I know what goes on in them. Between talking to people who have seen them, watching reviews of them, reading synopses, I know what goes on. I know what was different, or more often than not, how little was different. So depending on which ones you want to take a look at, some are more egregious than others, but the vast majority have been just straight up remakes, which is strip mining Disney's classics. And part of the frustration of that is this isn't even a matter of, oh, we need to bring it for a new generation. The originals never went away. Like, Disney animated films are truly timeless. I remember when I was a kid that it blew my freaking mind that Peter Pan, Pinocchio, Bambi were decades older than I was. The idea that they've been around that long, that blew my mind. Because they are timeless. Animation stands the test of time way better than live action, just by its very nature. And so these things, with a couple of exceptions here and there, have not aged poorly. And they still work as much now as they did when they were made. So the normal, sort of justification for a remake of, well, we need to bring it for a new generation. This generation already was watching it. So that's gone. And what I really get annoyed about it, and what I'm about to say, I fully acknowledge, Disney is not intentionally making this a text or subtext of this entire practice, but it is an underlying thing whether they want it to be or not, which is that doing these live action remakes, it fundamentally undermines the art of animation, and it reinforces the conception, which is very much an American and Western conception, that real movies are live action and animated movies are just for kids. Now, these live action ones are still very much kids movies, but you know, they're longer, they're more detailed. We fix some of the problems with the animated ones. Now, last time I ranted about this, about the one thing that's different is more of these have come out. So I feel way more justified in my opinion now than I was when I did the last video, because last video only a handful of things had actually come out, and this was still largely all theoretical and hypothetical. I ended up being right. Go friggin' figure. I'm not actually happy about that. I would have loved to have been wrong. But let's look at the ones that have been done so far. And I'm not going to go blow for blow on all of these. Now, people have told me more than a few times that The Jungle Book is the best one of the ones that have been remade. And I don't necessarily doubt that. The approach of it looked kind of interesting. But the instant it lost me was when I saw a trailer where they started humming Bare Necessities. Because Bare Necessities is not iconic to the story, it's iconic to the Disney version of that story, which means they're strip mining the original animated one. And that's not the only song that they took either. And no, having Christopher Walken do I Want to Be Like You as this weird spoken word Christopher Walken-esque thing doesn't make it any better. It just makes it weirder. So I would say probably that, so from my understanding of what was done, that's the one that was probably the best. The one that, from what I have seen and read and talked to people about, the most egregious so far is Beauty and the Beast. Beauty and the Beast, the original animated one, is arguably the best film of the Disney Renaissance, possibly even the best film that Disney Animation Studios ever did. It is so tight and so complete and does absolutely everything that it needs to do in less than an hour and a half. Whereas the live action remake goes for dang near 2 hours and adds nothing that needed to be there. I mean, I'll steal from Lindsay Ellis on this because she did I think the definitive breakdown on why all these additions don't help, which, you know, with her refrain of thanks, I hate it because of all this additional stuff they added that answered pedantic criticisms of why didn't the people remember that there was a palace and a king? Why were the servants cursed? Is everything in there a living thing? Like, these are questions that you could ask of the original, but not having answers to them did nothing to diminish the original. The original worked. It just did. So what we're looking at now with this Aladdin teaser, what kind of triggered me was in the teaser we heard the Cave of Wonders. And it is the exact same voice. I don't even think they reused the recording because I know that movie well enough that I know exactly how it sounds like. I think that they brought that actor in, that voice actor in, to do it again in the same voice. And I had really been hopeful for the Aladdin one. You know, when they were going to do ethnically appropriate casting, I was like, okay, yeah. And, you know, they lined up a whole bunch of, you know, unknowns for a lot of these parts. I'm like, yeah, this could be really interesting. Got Guy Ritchie attached. I'm like, okay, I guess. But then the instant I lost interest was when they said, oh, and, you know, we've got these songs and we're bringing some songs back and doing some new ones. I'm like, ugh. And that might ultimately be the capper for me on most of these. If they weren't musicals literally recycling the same songs in a fair number of these, I'd be slightly better disposed to them than I am. But, yeah. So, Are there any of these that I have been okay with? Yeah. The ones that actually did something new. Maleficent. Wasn't actually a great movie. I think it had an amazing first third and couldn't stick the landing. The middle is particularly weak on that one. But Maleficent, I have no philosophical issue with because it's doing a completely different thing. Same with Christopher Robin, for that matter. I was really skeptical when I heard Winnie the Pooh was on the remake docket, but then once it actually came out, I haven't seen this either, but I wouldn't object to seeing it. When it actually came out, turns out that, you know, the Christopher Robin is not actually a remake of any of the Winnie the Pooh stories they've done. It's an extrapolation forward, and it's a new story. Cool. Fine. And Mulan, I was hopeful for. Because initially they said they weren't going to do the songs. And they weren't going to have the dragon. And I know some people like Mushu. He's not necessary for that story. He was a Disneyism. He was a Disney sidekick added into this story that didn't need him. Whether you like him or not, he doesn't need to be there. And a very good way to differentiate it would be to not have him and not have the songs. But last I checked, a month or so ago, they said, oh no, we're going to have some of the songs and we're going to have the dragon. So even when, for a brief period, it looked like they were going to do something new, instead they just circle back and go, oh no, we'll just do the same thing again. And it is just so masturbatory and such diminishing returns. I do believe that it honestly weakens the merit of the originals with this kind of nonsense. Not quite to the degree that, if we're to do a comparison, the cheap direct-to-video Disney sequels used to. I will cop to the fact that those, I think, were more damaging to Disney animation overall and to those particular stories and classics than, you know, this is. But this still isn't good. And now they've said they're going to remake Lilo and Stitch. What? Why? What is there that we actually gain? Are people really not able to connect anymore to something that they love from the childhood if it hasn't in some way been superficially updated? I still love the Disney films I loved when I was a kid. I have those. I love them. I still watch them. I adore introducing my daughter to them. I don't need to see it done again, but longer and worse. Because that's the other thing. I don't know anyone on any of these, even the best ones, who have said it's even better than the original. Like the ones that got the warmest reaction, at least from folks I know who understand where I'm coming from when I talk about this, were Cinderella and The Jungle Book. And I don't know anyone who says that, oh man, they did it better this time. Why are we doing this? And the epitome of pointlessness, The Lion King. And again, I can appreciate the fact that this time, aside from Zazu, which is going to be John Oliver, they are going for an all-black cast, which if you're going to set it in Africa, cool. I'm down for that. But it's not really going to be live action. It's going to be computer animated. Computer animated. It's still animation. I don't care how real it looks. At least in Jungle Book, the kid was real. The pointlessness of these, the fact that other people, especially people my age, continue to get really excited over these just infuriates me. And maybe I'm just the cranky, party-pooping bastard who is looking at something that other people are enjoying and going, that's dumb, you shouldn't enjoy that. And I don't like to be that guy. But why? Why is any of this happening? And why does it feel like I'm the only one looking at the overall thing and going, no! Because it feels like if anyone else is rejecting this, they're rejecting it on case-by-case basis, not the overall thing. Like, just, no! Just stop! None of this is helping. None of this is better. Just, Disney, I know you're kind of sore over the fact that 30 years ago, you used to be able, and prior to that, you used to be able to re-release your animated classics to theaters again because home video wasn't all that big of a thing yet, but now it is, and you can't get away with that. You tried to with the 3D conversion for a little bit, but that didn't last. Like, I get that you want to keep milking these things. I get it. And I get that you figured, oh, well, we'll basically just take the same script, do it in live action. It'll be great. Yeah, no, I get from a business standpoint. Get it. Artistic standpoint, how friggin' dare you? Every time I look at one of these trailers, I think maybe this time it won't be what I'm afraid it is, but every time it has been. And as a lover of animation, as someone who grew up on these movies, who still owns them and still watches them, please just stop. So those are my thoughts on the apparently never going to end trend of Disney remaking its animated films in live action. Remake The Black Cauldron. Remake the one that didn't work and wasn't good. Like, there'd be merit in that. But what are your thoughts about it? Whatever they are, drop something down in the comments. Let's talk about it. There's a whole bunch of buttons and links and stuff too, so, you know, click the buttons, check out the links. There's one to the Patreon if you feel like supporting this channel and my ability to try and make things better in it, with it, whatever. So check those out if you feel like it. There's a whole bunch of other links besides, but you know, if you don't want to take the time, don't worry about it, because remember, folks, you are the council and I just run the meetings. And until next time, this council is adjourned.